welcome back. We are now almost up to date. We have now just entered into the Accordance War following the Night of Iron Knives. So, basically, 10 days after what became known as the Beltane Massacre, the returned nobility, the Arcadian Sidhe, met beneath the banner of High King Lord Dafil, the first Lord of War of House Gwydion. The houses are something else that we'll get into much later on, but basically there are a number of noble houses within the Sidhe. Now, Lord Dafil was the wielder of Caliburn of the Dreaming's Heart. This legendary sword was a symbol of the dreaming. And they kicked off the war against the commoners, wanting to retake their previously owned lands, with what became known as the Battle of the Bay of San Francisco. Now, this is the first time that we see a changeling battle in the modern world. And it's going to be interesting because I'm going to talk about the changeling battle and how it went unnoticed by the dreamers, by the mortals. Now, Dafil and the Sidhe swept through the city, attacking the commoners, conquering the freeholds, taking back the land. Now, it's important to recognize that this happened while the mortal war was going on in Vietnam. And what the mortals saw, and this is where the chimerical thing comes into play again, is because a lot of times when you're talking about changelings and you're talking about the dreaming, you will have what's really going on and what the mortals think is going on. Okay? And they're oftentimes not much alike at all. So you have armies of commoners marching against armies of the Sidhe. So how does that get hidden? You know all of those protests that went on about Vietnam? All of those huge crowds of people marching through the streets with signs shouting protests? There you go. That was the mortal seeming of the Changling War. The Arcadian Sidhe did not have any modern weaponry. They were still in the Middle Ages, basically. But they had access to powerful arts. Now, arts are the changelings' version of magic. They had access to powerful arts that none of the commoners knew how to combat. The commoners refused to surrender, even though they knew they were outmatched. They made the Sidhe pay for every freehold they retook. And along the road, some of the commoners, in fighting for their own dreams, and this is where it gets interesting as well, because bear in mind that changelings are mortal and fey. So a changeling is both a dream and a dreamer. The changelings, the fey come from the dreams of dreamers, but the changelings are both the dreamer and the dream. It gets a bit convoluted, but you have to remember that. because in the course of dreaming for their own victory, these commoners actually managed to recover some of the old trods, some of the old pathways. And many of them found their way to their own balefires, their own freeholds. So they lost the ones that they had been keeping for the nobles, but the dreaming itself granted them their own. Now, this war continued sweeping across the country. As Vietnam heated up, as the protests heated up, you have this Changling war sweeping through the nation. It all started with the Battle of the Bay of San Francisco, but where it all came to an end was in December of 1973 with the Battle of Manhattan. Now, the High King's forces had surrounded New York City. They had destroyed or conquered all of the holdings, both to the north and the south. And the city's commoner general, a troll strategist named Lyros, saw through the Shi's tactics. For a moment, he realized what they were doing, and he realized that their plan was to gather the commoners together in Manhattan before making a final strike and just murdering them all, killing them all off. Knowing that this was the plan, Lyros did what the Shi didn't expect. He ordered them to withdraw from the island. He left just enough defenders to convince the Arcadians that their plan had worked, that they had them all trapped. But he got everyone else out. Once the battle really got going, really heated up, the High King decided to venture onto the field himself in hopes of some honorable combat with Lyros. That's kind of the Shi for you. They can be doing something absolutely that we look at and think it's horrible or it's wrong, but they will still find nobility in the fact that they feel they should be doing it. So he strides out in his golden armor, trying to find Lyros for an honorable combat, so that he can murder him, along with all of his other people. But Lyros dispersed his forces. He started fighting a guerrilla war, and the Shi weren't ready for this. Now, what happened next, nobody can really explain, because nobody's really sure. But of how the Battle of Manhattan ended, there are a few facts that are detailed. It seems almost sure that DeFille, along with his personal guards, encountered a troop of Sluagh and Redcaps. It is almost certain that DeFille attempted to escape, and that through all of this, somehow or another, he was confirmed to end up in the subway tunnels beneath the city. His body was found a short time later with a cold iron knife in his back. Now, despite both sides frantically searching for Caliburn, his sword, neither side could find it. And as that symbol of leadership vanished, the dreaming invaded the mind of soothsayers across the nation and left them with a mysterious prophecy. We'll get on to that prophecy next.